The Spinoff Podcast Network.
Are you making the most of your KiwiSaver investment? Generate is an award-winning KiwiSaver provider with a track record of strong long-term performance. Making a smart decision now could add tens of thousands of dollars by the time you reach retirement. Book a no-obligation chat with a Generate KiwiSaver advisor today at generatekiwisaver.co.nz/get-advice. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
I'm Toby Manhire, and this is Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour Government, a podcast in 6 parts.
Doesn't give my opponents much time to run up to an election, does it?
This nation is at risk.
What do you think you're up to now, you perverted little liar?
I could smell the uranium on it as you lean towards it.
There's a radical overhaul in the history of New Zealand's administration.
Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour Government, made with the support of New Zealand On Air. Listen now on the Spinoff or wherever you get your podcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, this has Gone By Lunchtime. No mai, hi mai. Ben Thomas, hi.
Hello.
Shortium. Annabelle Lee, hi, from the Hui.
Kia ora.
We're right in the middle of debate season, really, aren't we?
It's very debatey at the moment.
So much debates.
It's the happiest time of the year.
And in the spirit of Christmas, the spinoff.co.nz is having its own debate on Wednesday evening, Wednesday the 6th of September. And for any of you who is listening like really soon after we publish this podcast, do you publish a podcast? Whatever it is you do with it, on Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. If you would like to come to our debate, which is in Auckland on Wednesday evening, 6 o'clock for 7 sort of thing, ping an email to info@thespinoff.co.nz. We've just got a handful of places available to nearest and dearest Gone By Lunchtime whānau.
Is it up in here, up at the Spinoff?
No, it's at a location in Auckland.
Oh.
Do people get to meet Annabelle if they come?
I don't know. Are you coming, Annabelle?
It depends if it's at the Spinoff, because I can only walk up 3 flights of stairs like once a week.
It's not.
I was going to say, if you suffer
maybe
any...
up a little bit of steps. Sorry,
okay.
Karen.
I was going to say, if you want to come but you have like fitness issues or asthma or anything, this is probably not the debate for you. You'll be dead before you get here.
Yes. It's not here though, so...
Okay, that's good.
The debate last night, the high point of the campaign, maybe in dramatic terms, was the News Hub debate held before a live studio audience. You were there, Annabelle.
I was there.
Tell us about it.
It was an impressive setup and very well attended. High production values, as you'd expect from TV3. It was supposed to be a neutral audience, but during one of the breaks, Jacinda walked over and a young man sitting in front of me screamed out, "I love you, Jacinda!" So I don't know
maybe
if it was entirely neutral.
Yeah, maybe it was one really winning segment.
Potentially. But yeah, no, it was a good debate. Auntie Mary was there to cheer on Bill. That was exciting.
Oh, I didn't see her on the television.
Yes, she was there. So was Carmel Sepuloni and a few others and members of the press gallery and then me and Morgan Godfrey.
And you weren't there.
I wasn't there, and Annabelle was on a panel with my colleague Matthew Hooden from Exceltium, who she's been two-timing me with,
right,
in commentary. I felt it was quite a shock. I was watching on my TV, and then my whole world collapsed.
But you were just telling us that you weren't watching on your TV because you couldn't get the technology to work.
Yeah, I missed the first 5 minutes of the debate because I couldn't figure out how to make Chromecast work on my TV, but fortunately there was a millennial on hand.
And you were drinking heavily through the...
Political drinking games, I think, are probably one of... I don't have a lot of hobbies, so there's not stiff competition, but one of my favourite pastimes is political drinking games, and you can only really do leaders' debate ones sort of once every 3 years, so it's sort of like the World Cup.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested, I can publish on Twitter the rules for the Hollow Men drinking game with the Alistair Barry and Nicky Hager DVD, and you can play that any time.
Ben, do you use craft beer when you're playing this drinking game, or is it like shots of like single malt whiskey and stuff?
No, it's I had double brown last night.
Oh, classy.
Yeah. So craft adjacent.
Now that we've got the important things out of the way, let's talk about the debate itself, Annabelle. I guess what were the striking things for you? I was surprised to hear Bill English pledge to bring 100,000 children out of poverty by 2020.
Yeah, it would have been good to have heard more about that, but then it kind of disintegrated into a bit of a fight about, is there 100,000 or is there 290,000? And I feel like Jacinda was able to lay a bit of a punch there because the government has refused to sign up to a formal measurement of child poverty in New Zealand, and UNICEF say there's 290. Bill is saying there's less than half of that. So, but well done, Paddy Gower, getting a commitment out of the government to raise those kids out of poverty. Well done.
It's been 9 long years of steadfast refusal, steadfast insistence that you simply can't create a measurement of poverty that will allow you of child poverty that will enable you to set a target. And within the blink of a News Hub eye,
done.
All has changed,
Sorted.
Ben Thomas.
Yeah, it's actually becoming a bit of a theme of this campaign. Over the weekend, Jonathan Coleman the Health Minister, was on Q&A with David Clark from Labour. And just a month or two back, Coleman was saying there was no way you could set a target for reduction in suicide numbers, a government target. He said, the government doesn't have all the levers to make that happen, and it's an impossible dream. And I think on Saturday he said that he would consider it.
Yeah,
and that was something they were seriously looking at.
He was into it. So is this all happening on the fly? I mean, it didn't. It
absolutely is.
I did not get the sense that the strategy team of the National Party had sat down and said, you know what? Well, here's a good time to announce that we will completely volte-face on our existing position and announce a target for lifting children out of poverty, and we'll do it at minute 26 of the News Hub debate.
Well, no, look, I mean, I don't think Bill would have come up with it during the debate. I don't think that would have just been sort of spinning wheels and whirring cogs. No. I mean, the first debate was extremely close.
There were
I think
no
most
details on
thought.
it afterwards, as far as I could tell.
No, and look, I don't think that it's incompatible to say that they came up with it in the days leading up to the debate, and they also have no idea how it's going to work. I think those are two totally consistent statements. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty around this. They said they were going to use the OECD measure. Bill suggested that that what would actually happen is just the families package, the gross amount from the families package that they've
would do it automatically.
Would suddenly
because
lift everyone to these
it's
thresholds.
50% of mean household income.
That's
is
right.
that right?
Yeah, one thing I liked about the debate, though, was that there was actually room to really sort of debate those issues, which I think was missing. That was missing from the TVNZ debate, which was very heavily focused strictly on sort of the economy and capital gains tax. It was nice that Paddy was able to kind of explore some of those ethical issues a bit more.
It felt like the debate one was very much in the shape of a V, in that everything came back and forth between the kind of traffic wardening of Mike Hosking, which I don't think necessarily was his fault. It was as much that the two were very wary about engaging directly with one another. But last night it felt very much like I was about to say three-way, but that's probably a bad choice of words. It felt as though there was a proper interaction going on between the two would-be PMs.
Yeah, I like too that the questions were a little bit quirky and unexpected, like the very first question, can you survive politics without telling a lie, was a really interesting way to start. And I have to say that it sort of instantly put Bill on the back foot, because I feel like he fudged his way through that one, whereas Ardern was able to give a relentlessly positive, clear-cut, concise answer.
Which in a way is hilarious, because I think Bill is still hamstrung a little bit by his unshakable tendency to try to honestly answer questions. I thought it was quite interesting. Bill looked much more comfortable, I think, in the panel section with Annabelle and the others afterwards than he did actually sort of standing at a lectern thundering about values and visions and that kind of thing, because I think he genuinely wants to be in a situation where somebody is seeking information from him and he's giving information, whereas Jacinda, lots and lots of talk about visions of values. She said, what was her line? It was a good one.
I believe the children are our future.
Build
the world, let them lead the way.
Yeah, that was it. Did you not hear her say that? That was the vision.
All you hear when Jacinda speaks is sort of like wind chimes and waterfalls, isn't it?
I thought one thing that English did well last night was to channel the Kiwi battler, wairua. What was the question? What do you bring? I can't remember what it was, but his answer was, I got back up again. It was about losing the election.
Yeah, the 2002.
And I thought that was, that to me is his strong point, that it's one of his strengths that he can play to, that, he does have this experience and he knows what it's like to be down. He's been at the bottom. He can fight his way to the top.
I get up again.
Yes, that's exactly it. And you gotta give it to Bill. He's a pretty brave guy. I remember he did the Fight for Life all those years ago, so he's prepared to put it on the line, and I think that's his sweet spot, and he should try and stay there as much as possible.
I thought they were both quite good. I thought they were both very. I thought neither of them. I thought both of them. They thought, yep, they could both be. They both look prime ministerial, and in a way, that means that it's, in the broader scheme, a win for Jacinda Ardern, given she is so new to the leadership, if not to politics.
I think that's absolutely right. She looked very sort of composed, self-assured, in control. There was one moment when Bill tried to interject and she just sort of said, "Wait." And it was kind of, it was like a Jonah Lomu 95 World Cup fend. There was
the Richardson U. That was it was kind of, we filed together these kind of one-syllable moments of the rise of Jacinda Ardern.
Yeah.
I think it's important too to see her being assertive, and I feel like that's what was really missing from the last debate. She looked, I know I mentioned it last night, but when she was standing at the lectern shaking her head but not interjecting and almost looking plaintively at Hosking wanting him to interject on her behalf, that's not a show of strength or confidence, whereas I think last night seeing her interject more and debate and defend her policies with rigour, I think it made for a much stronger performance than the first.
I agree with you. I do, though, think, going back to the thing we were talking about slightly before about the thing of, her kind of default position is values and her default position is, this is my vision. And I feel like at moments, and maybe this is what happens if you're someone who's watching more politics than most people who have real lives do, but she had one line in it which was, she talked about, I want to talk about how people feel. And I thought, you know what, that's, on one level, that's a really good line, and it's true. On another level, I don't want to overstate it, but how far away are we from truthiness there? I mean, how people feel, for example, and we'll get onto this a bit later, is that crime is terrible, and but it's not. So how people, I just sort of think you can only play that so many times,
Well, I don't agree, because I think, the debate wasn't for the people in the room. It was for ordinary New Zealanders who are watching. And most of them don't know what GDP is and how important it is and whether it's doing good or bad or whatever. She's right. What people know is how they feel. Do they feel like they're getting ahead? Do they feel like they're struggling to get by week? And I think those sorts of lines, as trite and annoying as what they might sound to political hacks and those in the know, for the average Kiwi, yes, that's important. It is about how they feel. Are they struggling, or do they feel like they're getting, for people who are national supporters, they might feel like everything's going great for them, and therefore that they'll be giving their vote to Bill, and then the rest may feel that life is a struggle, and they're getting told they live in a rock star economy, and yet they've got cousins that are living in cars. And so I think there is an audience for that type of kōrero.
I think if you go back to a long time ago, Bill Clinton, when he was challenging Bush Sr. for the presidency, a lot of people thought the turning point was a town hall debate that they had, where a question from the audience was something about national debt, and Bush Sr. gave a very erudite, learned answer about why national debt wasn't a problem, because it only added so many billions of dollars to the cost of debt servicing, and actually, it showed that there was a good balance of trade and that kind of thing. And Clinton, knew to a thing of what Annabelle was saying, Clinton knew that this guy asking about it didn't really know what national debt was, and just talked about jobs and growth and security for families, which has literally nothing to do with the national debt, and got rapturous applause for it, and was seen as really in kind of really connected with the kind of the heartland and the concerns of people. Where I think that Jacinda risks overplaying it is, she talked a lot about her vision and contrasted the fact that she had a vision and Bill just had tunnels. It's still not clear what the vision is. I mean, it's a very impressionistic vision at best. It's very Manet or something. There's no real...
It's this. It is pretty clear in the slogan. That's what's going to be done.
Let's do it.
No, this.
Yeah. Let's do this. Yes, sorry.
As for the debate itself, it seemed to me that the National Party threw everything at it. We haven't talked really about what kind of the main news story of the day, by far, that led both the 6 o'clock bulletins ahead of the debate, was the claim by Stephen Joyce, backed up by Bill English, that there was an $11.7 billion hole in the Labour Party's fiscal numbers. And you talked just before, Ben, about how that worked for Clinton, avoiding the detail, but it's clearly worked in the past for National, and thinking particularly about that, what year would that have been, 2011 versus Gough and the Show Me the Money supposed zinger. Very effective line, and it worked again against Cunliffe on details on capital gains tax, and it seemed as though that was timed as a grenade to try and tilt the debate towards what everyone wants to talk about, fiscal numbers.
Fiscal management.
We've got, as Bill English told us in a line, that he had spent 8 years every day counting every dollar. And so it's kind of, how could he possibly be wrong? Jacinda Ardern said it's a fiction. She argued back hard, but then she said that this sounds like two politicians bickering, which is probably true, but it sounded as well a bit like a concession to my mind. And yet we have had a series of non-partisan economists come forward and say, nah, it's not true. The core claim that there's an 11 billion fiscal hole ain't true.
Yeah, it was a very well-tossed grenade. And the thing is that despite all of those people coming out and saying it's not true, it's still incredibly damaging. And most people don't understand how that stuff works and, or would bother to go through and read their fiscal plan. And so it had the potential to do real damage, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of days.
It's risky, isn't it, though? I mean,
it's risky in terms of their own credibility with those people who do know that what they've said is apparently incorrect.
I mean, if it's fundamentally not true, and it's it's shown objectively to be untrue, shouldn't Stephen Joyce resign at that point? I mean, seriously, isn't that campaign director, finance minister? I mean, he's said that this is an egregious, shameful error on the part of the Labour Party, and if it were true, it would be deeply embarrassing to have 11 billion bucks missing. Doesn't it go the other way too?
Well, I think where this is different from the "Show Me the Money" quips is that what they revealed was that Gough and then Cunliffe weren't actually in command of their own policy and didn't know what they were promising. Here, Grant Robertson, the finance spokesman, and Jacinda Ardern, the leader, came out just very quickly, clearly said, no, that's not right. And so they cauterized it immediately.
Did they?
Well, they prevented it from becoming a catastrophe.
I don't know.
Remember, when you cauterize something, you've already lost a limb. So
I would just say that I watched for that very reason, I watched both of the 6 o'clock bulletins last night, and I think if I'd gone in cold to those bulletins, I would have thought, fucking Labour, eh?
No, that's right. And the newspaper stories were Labour denies $11 billion hole. So, look, if we never hear anything more about this again, and I suspect National won't be front-footing it anymore, it's achieved its purpose.
If it stays as a he said, she said, if it stays as they say this, we say that, then...
And the fact that English continued to defend it last night, despite lots of people coming out, he doubled down.
And we were talking before about the incredible workload that journalists covering this campaign have. Like, it's mammoth. You know, everyone in TV, radio, newspapers are doing plucky startups
harder than the podcasters.
are really under immense time pressures, and they're churning out sort of at least half a dozen pieces a day. They're all doing Facebook Live. They're doing podcasts now as well, right? And the idea that they're going to be, and they're not financially trained, and so the idea that they're going to be able to sit down and check through all of the line by line before they run Joyce's claim. Joyce knows that they won't do that, right? And so you've got at least a day where it's a contested he said, she said story, which can only reflect poorly on Labour. So it is, to use a horrible phrase, good politics. But yeah, it is really taking advantage of the immense pressure that the people covering the campaign are under.
You're absolutely right, and that's why it's so potent and so damaging, because it is so incredibly complex to figure out for political journos, let alone, the average Kiwi. So.
But it's also high risk. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it is also high risk, because if it is, there is, I don't think it's true the way that some of our friends on Twitter are saying, oh, this is hopeless. Again, the media are just doing he said, she said. I mean, as you say, Ben, there isn't kind of an instant objective economic analysis machine. It takes a while, and let's see. All I mean is let's see. Let's not just sort of dismiss the mainstream media immediately. I'm not saying
not at all. I think that where it sort of landed, and I think this is why National will probably avoid a lot of blowback from it. It seemed to be in the eyes of some people that what had happened is Labour have taken a less orthodox approach to the way they account for future spending in core government areas like health and education, upfront loading into those line items rather than the future expenditure line item itself. So it looks like
earmarking this money. This is going to be health. This is going to be education. So they've got a bit less.
That's right. And there's a number of reasons why they could have done that. Labour say it's because they were trying to be honest about their intentions. It could be so that they can claim they're spending more money than National on core areas. There could be any number of explanations. And so because they laid out their budget in a less orthodox way, either Joyce did misinterpret it, or Joyce saw this kind of ambiguity and sort of willfully kind of gave it the least charitable interpretation. And I think both of those things are probably, that second explanation is probably a little more acceptable to the public than just fucking up or just outright lying.
The sense, however, in all of this is that the National Party are in a mode we haven't seen for an awfully long time, which is on the hop, trying to come up with things, trying to appeal to the base a bit, as we saw was it Sunday when the policy was announced to do with gangs and summary... not execution, but being able to being able to search their properties without any suspicion, blah blah blah. And then Paula Bennett made what was accepted to be a mistake, in which she said that some people have fewer human rights than others. Is this all part and parcel of the same thing, Ben? Is that what I haven't read your column yet. Is that what your column's about? Your Roadrunner column?
Please buy a print copy of the Herald.
What page you on?
It's in the print.
Is it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I can clip it out and send it to my parents. But just buy it. Just show NZME that Ben Thomas equals cash.
Will your parents scrapbook it if you send it to them?
Probably, actually. I haven't given them much to be proud of in life, so...
That's true.
Got a grasp
Short
onto-
scrapbook.
Yeah.
It's more like a mood board. But yeah, look, I mean, what we're seeing in this campaign is National is really. I think Duncan Grieve, a Spinoff publisher, in a very good piece on Sunday, he called it "The mask is off. National is reverting to type." I don't think it's quite reverting to type. I think that more National is kind of. They seem as if they're running a bit empty on ideas, and they're just going back to the things that they remember working 10 years ago when they tipped out Clark. And that is tough on crime, that is boot camps for young offenders, that is, and it's almost Pavlovian sort of response, I think. There doesn't seem to be a lot of passion or heart behind any of this. The Prime Minister looked extremely disengaged during that announcement, and because this doesn't really jibe with any of his sort of social investment stuff. But they see this as a way of just kind of getting an automatic response from their base and core voters.
Annabelle?
I think a lot of Māori would say that when National talks about crime and justice and those sorts of issues, that it's often, coded, we're coming after the Māori, we're cracking down on Māori. I think that's, a widely held belief, the old dog whistle politics. One of the things that concerns me is, last week was the inquest into the death of Mokorangi Tohiriri. And, some of the evidence given was that his mum really struggled to find accommodation here in Auckland while her older son was at Starship Hospital, because she was gang affiliated, and that meant that she had to leave Moko and his big sister in the care of a whānau who were clearly already under huge financial and social pressures, and we all know how that story ended. One of the things that's in that policy talks about cutting off benefits for gang members who may have an asset and aren't able to explain how they came upon it. So I'm really worried. What does that mean for the tamariki of gang members if their if their rights are being watered down even further, and we know that these are the kids that are really at risk? Aren't we just making those kids even more vulnerable than what they already are? And then to have the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand talk about human rights in such a cavalier way is really concerning. It will certainly concern a lot of Māori. It definitely concerned me.
I think Toby Morris my friend Toby Morris had a best line on it when he said that you can't spend human rights at the supermarket, and it felt a bit like that. All of this, in a way, the last kind of not even a week yet, 5 days, has come in the wake of that amazing Colmar Brunton poll that sucked all the air out of the first debate on Thursday, in which it showed for the first time in 12 years the National Party trailing the Labour Party head to head. Is kind of amazing. And then we had a Reid research poll which was conducted over a longer period but ending on the same day as the Colmar poll, which had National ahead by 2 points, but on average, basically they're neck and neck now. And it's also, it's all changed so fast, but it's, if you look at the mean of those two polls, you've got New Zealand First down at 7.5, Greens at 5.5. New Zealand First, across the course of two Reid polls, have lost half their support, incredibly, although that's not gained nearly as much coverage. Where am I going here? What's my question? The minor parties finished?
It's amazing to think that 6 weeks ago, Winston was challenging Andrew Little's right to be called leader of the opposition, and he was on strong ground to do so.
There was talk that he should be in those leaders' debate, whereas now that would be bizarre, right?
Exactly, and now we've just seen New Zealand revert to form, and we're back into a first past the post type election. So it's it has been what started off as looking like the greatest campaign for the minor parties, the Greens included.
The Greens moment.
Has gone right off the rails, and now they're the Greens particularly, fighting for their survival and have been demoted to the minor players that they are. So, yeah, fascinating. But I still feel like there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge between now and the election, and we might see them lift again. I think we probably will.
I think at the TV3 leaders, the minor party leaders debate, they had a segment where they said, what would you say to absent friends? And I think they were talking about Peter Dunn and Winston Peters and at the major party leaders debate yesterday, it was a bit of a kind of Gilda Kirkpatrick kind of thing. It was like, what do you think of the minor parties? And it's like, we haven't heard anything at all. Yeah.
Ben's diving deep into real pod territory.
ladies and gentlemen. I want to be able to guest on that next time Duncan goes away. I think it's only fair. But it was conspicuous. It was very conspicuous that I don't think the Greens got mentioned once, did they? The Memorandum of Understanding?
I don't think so.
I don't think it came
out. It didn't even. They might have got a mention in the first debate.
I think only Winston got brought up.
And in fact, if you look at, Patrick Leyland, who's a sort of wonk on these numbers, suggests that when you take into account house bias or known house biases, whereby the Greens have in recent times registered in the final poll lower than what in the final vote what they've had in the polls, they could be under 5. They're absolutely not safe yet. And it's an incredible thought. If New Zealand First, who are down to 6 point something in the Reid poll, incredible thought. Imagine if they slip back under. It seems unlikely, but imagine, The Māori Party, by the way, I was looking before at the fine print in the Colmar-Brunton poll. They came in at 1% on the Colmar Brunton. They actually registered 0.6%. Now these are small numbers, but it could be 1.4 is sort of what I mean when they're doing the rounding and they give you the number. The Māori Party aren't looking safe either. That at 0.6, if they win one seat, they don't get a top up at all. It's
you really have to question, with the benefit of hindsight, the agreement that Hone Harawira signed up to, because the Mana Party actually polled higher than the Māori Party in the last election, and had Hone won Te Tai Tokiro, he would have brought in another MP. Annette Sykes. He would have brought in Annette Sykes, which would have made for an exciting parliament. But Mana has completely disappeared off the map. It's amazing, and I wonder if Hone now wishes he had perhaps carved out Tāmaki Makaurau as well as a part of that deal, just to try and keep their profile up, because they've disappeared into the abyss. Yeah,
totally. More so than David Seymour. David Seymour's got a much sort of higher, and he's also a one-seat guy, clearly. The other thing, I was thinking about this, and it seems to me the national strategy now is the number that they've got, which people have talked about that isn't true in other elections where there have been these seismic shifts, is they've got the right track, wrong track stuff. Here, the right track is in the polls is still higher, still sits around 60, 65, the last ones I saw. Whereas in other countries, like in the UK, it's more like 40, and I'm in very rough ballpark sense. And so national strategy is if you can get rid of everything else and say, as you've heard Bill English say repeatedly, voters have a clear choice, a drag race. He's banking on that, isn't he? That he's banking on the idea that it's now, okay, rather than going against this motley crew, because that's gone, that ad, you're not going to see that ad again. You're not going to see the ad with the joggers
all lashed together.
Now it's and in a way, that's fine, right? Like if it is, I think he's right. It is a clear choice, and that's good, isn't it? That's a good election, isn't it?
The advantage that he has over Jacinda too is that she is making a generational play for young voters, which is potentially very powerful, given that there's lots of young voters, except they don't tend to turn up and vote. Where Bill's strength is that he's playing to an older audience who get out there on the Saturday and cast their votes. And
if you look at it, Bill has been doing a lot of time in the regions. During the sort of full flush of the Jacinda effect, when I think when just before she swept through in the Colmar-Brunton poll, he had spent 3 days in Southland. They're really, really concentrating on getting that regional base out.
Thanks both enormously for that, and thanks Jose Barbosa, thanks Annabelle Lee, thanks Ben Thomas. We have the Spinoff debate on Wednesday night, tune into Facebook, the Spinoff Facebook page from 7. Should be a lot of fun. Pretty sure it's going to be the debate that decides the general election of 2017. There's more debates too. We'll be back next week to chew it all over. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, I'm Duncan Grieve, founder of The Spinoff. You can help us keep all of The Spinoff's award-winning journalism free for everybody by becoming a member today at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Talofa lava. I'm Madeline Chapman, editor at The Spinoff. If you have the means, consider supporting our high-quality journalism by becoming a Spinoff member. Sign up now at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
The Spinoff Podcast Network.